Chief Twit Elon Musk is calling for peace after days of infighting with anti-immigrant MAGA bros. On Sunday, taking to X, the South African-born billionaire urged his followers to stop being so negative, guys. Come on. He wrote, please post a bit more positive, beautiful, or informative content on this platform, which that's pretty funny considering how X is basically a leading source of misinformation nowadays. Now, the response to this, of course, was not exactly what he was hoping for. Yami Nakahiro says, you hypocrite. Bonita Applebaum writes, too late, you created this cesspool. You own it. Hypocrite. No, that's not going well, is it? Peepa Stewart writes, it would be beautiful if you did something for humanity and made the world a better place, instead of being the soulless ghoul you are. Don't lecture others. Look in the mirror. Hypocrite. so many of those comments. Love it. Now, on Friday, Musk liked a post asserting that Americans are too, basically, R-slur, all right, to fill the country's tech workforce. Okay. Now, in response, one of his fans, Stephen Mackey, reposted a video of him from 2021 of Musk, in which he spoke about SpaceX's plans for a fully reusable rocket, saying everyone's basically, without knowing it, they've got a mental straitjacket on. They'll work on optimizing the thing that simply should not exist. Now, wait a minute, what does that have to do with this? Well, Mackey basically applied the same logic here that he used for H1B visas, saying, hey, those visas, they shouldn't exist. Now, Musk responded by saying, the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H1B. So, now look, Musk founded SpaceX, but he actually bought Tesla from someone else and basically tried to erase the previous ownership. So, let's be fair, Elon Musk hasn't, built a lot of companies, okay? But he has certainly bought a lot of them out from under other people. So, yeah. Now, Musk added, take a big step back and F yourself in the face. That's interesting.
Sexual anarchy.
Is it, though? I mean, I guess if you're doing it to yourself in your face, does it count as sexual anarchy? I don't know. No idea. Okay. I know. This is kind of a weird thing to wonder, but nonetheless.
Tallywhacker.
All right. Plenty of that. In the face. He said, he continued by saying, I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. Now, in case you're wondering, of course, that is a movie quote from Tropic Thunder. Yes, it kind of cringe, just being honest. Mackey responded with saying, I personally am fine with reforming H1B. As I've stated multiple times today, I am so incredibly grateful you and many others are in the country because of H1B. I do, however, think it's appropriate to be critical of a program that is so obviously filled with abuse. Yes, and to be fair, that is the issue here, okay? H1Bs and H2Bs do allow for CEOs to exploit foreign laborers, okay? Which drives down wages, discourages Americans from taking out tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt to get an education in tech, because they'll be passed over by employers looking for cheap labor that they're able to get overseas. Okay, so it's not that there's a lack of smarts and talent here. Is that why go and get a STEM degree if you're going to get passed over for someone with a much lower wage, okay, requirement? Now Mackey later on said, "Hey, look, I am personally the biggest fan of Elon on the planet, and I always will be." Wow, Dick Ryder much. I'm just saying. Wow. Even though you just got, I don't know, publicly attacked and shamed by your hero, man, that's got to feel really bad. Really bad. But anyway, more responses here. Lisa K writes, oh, you mean like go F yourself in the face? Beautiful and positive? Effing hypocrite. Love it. Now, these next comments, by the way, point out a real issue here on the platform X, and I think, to be fair, on social media in general. Okay? Redhead Ranting writes, I do, but it doesn't get viewed. One-liners, stupid questions, and rage baiting still beats out anything positive. Maybe change up the algorithm first? And you understand the algorithm is working as intended. Okay? And I say that because it's not like he hasn't changed the algorithm before. He just made it so that it boosts himself and his right-wing friends, who, surprise, don't really have a whole lot of anything positive to say. Shocker. Wow. Now, there's another post that says, the current algorithms on X prioritize posts that provoke shock, anger, or surprise, while quality posts are sidelined. Please consider improving these algorithms. Hey, you know what's going to happen? Not that. Okay. And you know why? Because currently the biggest subscribers, biggest names on X/Twitter are right-wing posters who will then bitch and complain that their rage bait is not getting enough engagement. Okay. That's part of the problem. Okay. So it's super ironic that someone who bought this platform and made it into an even more toxic swamp than it was before, because like back in the day, yeah, Twitter was bad. Okay. It wasn't nearly as bad as what it is now. Hoo boy. And so you got this guy who took something that was bad and made it that much worse, now complaining about, wow, guys, where's all this negativity coming from? I don't understand. Why is it so negative in here? Gee, I wonder why. Oh, right. You did this. Yeah. Elon, you brought back the white nationalists, the groypers. You brought back the transphobes and all the other people who were banned for making that place especially awful. Do not be surprised now that you reap what you sow. I mean, I don't understand. I didn't think the leopards were going to eat my face. I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot of that over the next 4 years. Yeah, lots of leopards. They will feast very well. Let's just say that. Now, that said, Musk eventually did back down and conceded that, maybe the H1B program is kind of broken. Quote, easily fixed by raising the minimum salary significantly and adding a yearly cost for maintaining the H1B, making it materially more expensive to hire from overseas than domestically. Oh, well, hey, look, there you go. We've got an admission here of a real problem. The fact that billionaires like Elon Musk use the program to exploit labor. Wow, shocker. I'm honestly very surprised. Now, here's the thing, though. The problem is that this is not the problem for many MAGAs, okay? The real problem for them is brown people. Yeah. Steve Bannon, for example, right? Steve Bannon called Elon Musk a toddler, which is pretty funny. But at the same time, look, and also was like, we should raise taxes on the rich. Okay, great. Still, one of the big problems with Steve Bannon is that he is an unapologetic racist. One of his favorite books is Camp of the Saints, where the good guys are, of course, a white person that murders a bunch of Indian immigrants in cold blood. So that's the hero of that story, okay? And use the word hero very loosely, right? Very loosely. Something tells me that him and others who think like him are not really concerned about the idea of Indian immigrants being exploited by CEOs. Which, again, that's the big issue for me is, hey, you got people that are being exploited, and as a side effect of that, you have American workers that are very qualified to do these jobs that are getting passed over so that the CEO can make an extra buck. So, yeah, that's a big problem. But anyway, some of the responses to that show that not everyone is buying his mea culpa, if you can call it that. One writes, the tech right just wants a truce so they can survive the blowback. Fair. Another said, bro, you spent Christmas calling Americans subhuman, again, that R slur, and declaring that you would purge all MAGA loyalists from the America First movement that you bought 6 months ago because we are racists for not letting you import millions of Indians. And there it is. So, I mean, case in point, right? I don't know, man. It kind of seems like the Elon MAGA coalition is not exactly off to a great start. Trump's not even president yet. It's going to be a long 4 years. Over the weekend, President-elect Donald Trump finally waded into the fight between Elon Musk and his MAGA adherents, including people like Ann Coulter and Laura Loomer. Oh boy. Big surprise, Trump backed his fellow billionaire. Because of course he did. In fact, in an interview with the New York Post, he said, I've always liked the visas. I've always been in favor of the visas. That's why we have them. I have many H1B visas on my properties. I've been a believer in H1B. I have used it many times. It's a great program. Ooh, yeah, I'm sure he has. I mean, the program gives a lot of power to employers to control that guest worker's life. Yeah, and to underpay them, of course. So, yeah, it's not at all shocking for me to see Donald Trump backing this program, even though, to be fair, during his first term, he did curtail it just a little bit. However, you could argue that reducing the number of H-1B visas available actually makes it even more cutthroat for the applicants and makes them even more willing to be exploited by their bosses. So, I mean, you know, could see that. But then again, getting back to Laura Loomer and Coulter, that's not the real reason that they say that this program needs to be reformed, or in this case, just completely get rid of it. No, what they're not looking out for the American workers. They're not looking out for the Indian workers, obviously. They're basically, hey, we want to ban immigrants because we believe that they're culturally inferior to us. And maybe even genetically inferior to us. Like, that's the real impetus behind that, okay? That said, the billionaires, they love the program, not because it helps, you know, bring in the top talent. No, it's because it exploits immigrants and allows them to pay substandard wages. No one here has the American or the Indian workers' best interests in mind here, at least no one in MAGA. Now, Warren Gunnels, a progressive advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders, on Friday, he pointed this out. He said, look, billionaires want you to wage a culture war while they win the class war. And that is 100%. There is a big problem with these visas. And it ain't the workers' fault. It's not the American workers' fault. It's not the Indian workers' fault. Okay? It is the companies for abusing this thing. Okay? This visa. Last year, the EPI, the Economic Policy Institute, put out a report saying that H-1B visas were not being used to fill genuine labor shortages in skilled occupations without negatively impacting U.S. workers' wages and working conditions. The program's biggest users, they found, were companies that actually laid off thousands of workers in 2022 and 2023. And we know, of course, that labor is the biggest expenditure when it comes to these companies. And so when it comes to most companies, labor is the biggest thing. You got to pay your workers, right? And well, these companies are like, actually, no, wrong. We're not going to pay them. We're going to go and abuse this program, import a bunch of workers, guest workers that we can control. And then if they complain, send them right back. That's it. That's what's going to happen. Now, according to Ron Hira, EPI's Director of Immigration Law and Policy Research, along with Daniel Costa, writing in this report, the rest of the companies that dominate the program have an outsourcing business model that exploits the program by underpaying skilled migrant workers and offshoring U.S. jobs. Yeah. Hira writes, employers favor guest workers because they have fewer rights and less bargaining power. Guest workers are guests in a country. They stay only if they meet the visa rules, and it's only for a temporary period. They live in a constant state of precarity. The government gives employers enormous control over its guest workers. So, yeah, you see why Elon Musk and Donald Trump love this program? I mean, cheap, compliant workers. It's a capitalist dream. Okay. There's more from here. He writes, the U.S. Labor Department has set the H-1B minimum wages far below market wages. Employers can and do pay H-1B workers much less than market rates. While H-1B workers can change jobs, they have far fewer employment options and job mobility than U.S. workers. Many call their employment situation indentured servitude. Yeah, remember that? It's back. Because they are effectively bound to their employer. Employers control the visa so they can exercise extraordinary bargaining power over their H-1B workers on wages and working conditions. Now, reporter Ryan Grimm adds this. Any visa program that makes the boss a feudal lord over the worker with the threat of deportation looming is bad in principle. Lots of good ways to improve it and make conditions better for all workers and also grow the economy. Now, you notice I kind of laughed a little bit because I thought of an Elon Musk tweet, right? Where he's like, I don't like unions because I don't like anything that creates a lord and a serf relationship. And so right there, I was reading that and I was like, wait a minute. You know, Musk uses and defends H-1Bs. Donald Trump uses and defends H-1Bs. And it's because it creates a feudal lord-serf situation. Huh. Yeah. Very interesting. Some irony here. Maybe lots of it. That said, look, overall, my take on all this is I welcome immigrants. Immigrant worker, of course I do. Of course I do. And so do progressives, right? That said, I don't want them coming over here to be exploited. I don't want any workers exploited, whether it be American workers, Indian workers, Chinese workers, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Mexican workers, I don't want anybody to be exploited. And we should have an economy that is not based on exploitation. Okay? It wouldn't be nice. It would be nice, wouldn't it? To have an economy that is not based on exploiting someone down the line. But then again, that's how a lot of these rich people get rich, through some level of exploitation. Okay. And by the way, I also don't want American workers to be, to be basically the second choice, right? Because this Indian worker will work for less and will have less rights than an American worker. I don't want that to happen either. And I don't believe that Elon Musk and Donald Trump want to fix that system. And it's because, of course, they directly benefit from keeping the system as it is. If anything, Trump may cut the number of visas further. But, okay, what would that do? Well, that would just make even more competition for what little visas there are, even more, cutthroat, okay, to make even more people even more desperate to come in and do whatever the boss wants. So again, that's one of the issues. But I think that's as far as Trump will go. He'll do that, and then, distract the rest of MAGA, who might be mad about, not doing away with the program completely, because they never do that. But try to distract them with like the immigrant roundup, okay, which is pretty popular among Republican voters, unfortunately. I mean, a full 46% of Republicans support using the military to round up undocumented immigrants and put them in camps, literal camps, okay? So, I mean, talk about not learning the lessons of history. I mean, the last time America put people in camps during World War II, and it was an absolute humanitarian disaster and a shame on our country, a stain on the history. And here's Republicans saying, oh, actually, you know what? That was a great idea. Let's do that again. Jesus. But, if he does do that for real, by the way, I'm certain that the far right's going to forget about all this. as they revel in the misery that this will ultimately unleash. They love the cruelty. The cruelty is the point. Although I suppose time will only tell, but overall, I think that this, I don't think this will be the last time that the billionaire Donald Trump puts his class interests above the desires of MAGA. It ain't going to be America first. It's billionaires first. On Sunday, Republican Governor Chris Sununu said something extremely stupid.
One of the criticisms and the concerns is that he has billions of dollars tied up in government contracts. You don't see a conflict of interest here?
Everyone has a conflict of interest
But
at
that's
some
like
level.
a pretty big one.
The guy's worth $450 billion as of today and this month. So I don't think he's doing it for the money. He's doing it for the bigger project and the bigger vision of America. He doesn't need the dollars. He really doesn't. So it's not about, oh, if I get involved in this, I'll get another little contract here or there. That's nothing to him. So I like the fact that he's, in a way, he's so rich, he's so removed from the potential financial influence of it.
And there we have it. The dumbest take I believe I have ever seen. Oh, yeah, man, this guy's so rich, he couldn't possibly be corrupt. Really? I mean, you don't become a billionaire unless you're kind of corrupt in the first place. Unless you have stepped over people or have exploited someone or something, you generally don't become a billionaire, okay? And look, you could just go through the laundry list. Jeff Bezos is a great example, right? Screwing over people with Amazon, subcontracting, terrible work conditions, et cetera, et cetera. You do not become a billionaire without stepping on someone, all right? That's the problem. That's the problem. But anyway, let's go over this, right? This whole idea from Sununu. The guy who gave millions of dollars to elect Donald Trump, Elon Musk, to become president, now co-chairs a committee that is tasked with coming up with ideas to cut the government. And this guy's like, he couldn't possibly use that position to benefit himself because he's too wealthy. What? That is beyond stupid. Okay, it's so incredibly dumb and naive. Okay, in what world does Chris Sununu live in? All right, I mean, let me put it plainly. Okay, and answer that question. There is no world in which a wealthy man, an extremely wealthy billionaire, says, you know what? I've actually got enough money. I will no longer seek more out. Does not happen. Does not happen. No. At the end of the day, like when you hoard excessive wealth, it becomes a goal unto itself. Okay. No longer, when you are that wealthy, are you looking for things like, you know, I'm gonna build a business and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it for the betterment of humanity. I'm gonna do it for this. I'm gonna do it for that. You know, I'm gonna take care of my material needs and help my community, help my country. No, it's not about that. It is about the sole driving force when you get to that amount of wealth is, how do I get more wealth? That's it. You don't need it, but it becomes this goal of like, I must have more. I must create a bigger mountain for me to live on. That's it. That's it. And so they're going to keep doing that. And our system makes it incredibly easy to continue to hoard wealth and become disconnected. Now, getting to the conflict of interest, what exactly are they? Well, first off, his company, SpaceX, one of the many companies he has received billions of dollars in contracts from NASA and the Department of Defense to launch satellites, service the International Space Station, or use Starlink satellite communication network. So that, by the way, is now you've got world leaders that are like, ooh, Starlink. Oh, I'm actually kind of interested in that now. Are you interested in currying favor? That's another byproduct of wealth. People want to curry favor. Now, over the past decade, these SpaceX contracts came in at more than $15 billion, according to the New York Times. It's a lot of money right there, but it's not all of it. Last year alone, Musk's companies actually signed 100 different contracts with 17 different federal agencies totaling $3 billion. So now we've got tens of billions of dollars already. All right. And then you want to add in a huge moneymaker for Musk, the carbon credits. Tesla is able to sell carbon credits to other car makers. And they made a ton of money. I mean, just a killing. In the last quarter of 2023, for example, they sold $1.9 billion in these carbon credits. And in 2024, sold $2.1 billion worth of these credits, bringing in total earnings from such credits since 2009 to over $11 billion. It might actually be more. And I don't know what quarter in 2024 that $2.1 billion was. So, but when it comes down to it, nearly half, around 43% of the company's profits came from these carbon credits. So, in fact, the first few years, Tesla was, well, they were in the red. They were not making profits. They were not profitable. If they didn't have those carbon credits that they could sell, then, well, they probably would have went under. Never would have survived without those credits. So he owes a lot of his fortune to government, to the taxpayer, ironically. And how's he going to repay us and the government? By telling Donald Trump to gut Social Security, Medicare. Yeah, that's what he's doing. So now, aside the fact that the government and public investment made Musk rich, they've also tried to hold him accountable, and he don't like that. Okay, there's some issues that he's having with federal agencies. For example, an investigation by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission led to charges of securities fraud back in 2018. And actually, he was forced to step down as Tesla's chairman as part of a later settlement. And that's not all. In total, Musk is waging at least 11 separate regulatory or legal battles with the Biden administration or independent federal agencies related to his sprawling business empire, according to a tally by NBC News. These 11 ongoing battles, which involve 7 different government entities, touch on a wider range of subjects from unions to vehicle safety to privacy and the social media app X. So, yeah. I mean, the whole, Tesla driverless, autonomous car thing, not going so well for him. And of course, overselling the idea that, you're driverless, they'll drive themselves. Not really. Not without crashing into things or people. Or people. Or just catching on fire randomly. That's another issue with their cars. And of course, unions. I mean, Elon Musk, famously not for workers' rights. As I mentioned in another video, he says, I don't like unions because it sets up a situation where you have, landowners and serfs, basically. What? No, it's a complete opposite of a feudal system. It's a system where actually people can get together and bargain with you, the boss, for better wages and working conditions. But as I said, he don't like that. He don't like that at all. Now, that said, prior to the election, Richard Pierce, a law professor at George Washington University, specializing in government regulation, put out one of the reasons that Elon Musk, despite, again, making a lot of money from government and government contracts and, green energy, electric vehicles, why would he back Donald Trump? He says, quote, he would be in much less trouble in a Trump administration because Trump shares his hostility to regulation and regulators. And there you go. And look, it's that along with him being radicalized by having a transgender daughter, that led him to being where we as a country are in a political system are currently at, with a billionaire in charge, assembling a billionaire's cabinet. But look, Elon Musk is not an innovator. He's not a genius. He's just nothing more than a capitalist that has been very successful at building this mythos around him, which makes him a lot like Donald Trump in that regard. Okay, but what could Elon actually do, since he's not going to be technically part of the government, right? Well, he's still could use his money and his influence to influence regulators who might, want to look at closer at Tesla's self-driving push, which has not been very successful as so far. He could also convince those in power to keep those emission rules in place that allow Tesla to keep selling those carbon credits, which have been very, very successful for him. Now, that said, that is something that Donald Trump was against. He did not like those carbon credits. But we're going to have to see what happens, right? Now that Elon has ingratiated himself in that inner circle. I mean, at the end of the day, if Elon is successful at making those investigations of his companies go away, then, well, that would be a gigantic win for him. Okay. Yes, it would really illustrate the corruption in our government, but hey, it'd be a win for him, at least. So this idea that you could be too wealthy to be corrupt, and that's not really about money, is both hilarious and naive, as this is all about money. This is all about power, right? So that said, I do think Sununu and other Republicans, and even some Democrats, obviously, think this way, okay? That, oh, no, you can be so, you can have so much money and that will shield you from corruption. What? These people tend to, fight against the idea that we should get rid of lobbying and against, and political donations, because they don't think that's corruption. No, what are you talking about? Not the appearance of corruption. What are you talking about? Either that or they benefit from it. When, of course, in reality, objective reality, everyone who is outside of that bubble, who is not getting paid off, they see it and know it for what it is. And that is corruption, and that is why we have to ultimately get money out of politics. In the year 2024, the homelessness crisis went from bad to that much worse. All while the richest Americans actually literally doubled their wealth. Now, I'm sure those things are completely unrelated, right? I mean, come on, right? Actually, no, they're very much related. According to the latest annual data released on Friday by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the amount of Americans who no longer have a stable home increased massively by 18%. That's huge. Now, families who have children actually, it ended up even worse. 39% increase in homelessness for families with children. Wow. These are really disastrous numbers. As cities all over the country have actually made it easier, along with the Supreme Court, to criminalize people for sleeping out in the street. In fact, according to these numbers from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 770,000 people were counted as homeless in federally required tallies taken across the country during a single night in January of 2024. The estimate likely undercounts the number of unhoused people, given that it doesn't include people staying with friends or family because they don't have a place of their own. Yes, if you were lucky enough to be able to stay with friends or family, you're still homeless, right? But at least you have a place to sleep that will not get you arrested. I remember in my childhood going through that, and yes, being lucky enough to have some place to stay, but not a place of our own. And so that is very psychologically damaging for a child. I can tell you that firsthand experience right there. That said, I think being on the street, being in your car has to be even worse. I think it creates this, poverty mentality and this inability to attach yourself to any said area, community, neighborhood, whatever, because you never know when, you're going to have to leave, to go somewhere else, to, find a new place to sleep, basically. And so, yeah, that's horrifying. It's a complete disaster. This country is, when it comes to these issues, absolute joke. Now, that said, speaking of Joe, in a press release accompanying the new data, the Biden administration was like, "Oh no, hey, what are you talking about? We are tackling the nation's homelessness crisis with the urgency that it requires." Really, really, and also downplayed this new data as it's not current enough. It's too old. Oh, so wait, you guys have been right on it, huh? Right on it. Okay, well done. Good job. You're really nailing it over there. All right. Now, their argument is that, well, look, it's not fair because they're using older data, right? Okay, well, let's look at the year prior then. 2023, there's actually a 12% increase in homelessness. Oh, that's bad. Yeah. I mean, we should be going the other way. Okay, there should be less, there should be decreases in the amount of homeless people. Well, we're not going in that direction, and there are reasons why. Look, now, of course, in order to actually go in the right direction, you actually have to accurately explain the problem. So I'm going to get to that. What's driving the surge? Well, in 2023, HUD blamed the increase on soaring rents. Jimmy McMillan, right? The rent is too high. It's too damn high. Correct again. Correct again. Okay. Yes, the rent is too damn high. Not only that, but also the end of pandemic assistance also played a gigantic role in this. All right. Now, the 2024 surge also, not going to surprise you, that it was driven mostly by a lack of affordable housing. Then, of course, you also had natural disasters. Some of them definitely influenced by climate change. Okay. And you also had, unsurprisingly, as a result of some of these natural disasters, a surge of migrants in some regions of the country. So, yeah, it's according to federal officials. But notice that the number one reason, the biggest reason here, is the lack of affordable housing. Now, it's not that the housing doesn't necessarily exist. There is housing, right? A lot of people can't afford it, especially in the cities. Right now, there's about 15.1 million vacant houses in this country. It's about 10.5% of the country's total housing, right? So now, a lot of that, to be fair, is empty, not because it was just completely ignored or whatever. No, they're either for sale, okay, and people can't afford it, or they're between renters, and a lot of renters can't really afford it. So the problem is, you can't afford it, okay? And look, when it comes to renting, I mean, you need first month's rent, you need last month's rent, you need security deposit, you need credit checks, references. It's tough to rent out there, especially if you experienced any kind of financial issue, which, again, you have about half of all Americans that are $400 away from they can't afford a $400 emergency. So, yeah, you get those people trying to rent, even if they can afford it, they still run into those hurdles, right? To where, oh, we're not going to rent to those to that particular person because you got something on your credit. Oh, that just doesn't look very good. And again, other problem here with rental is that we're not dealing with, like, oh, this person bought a home and then they got a second home and then they're going to rent it out for a little bit of extra income. Yes. No, a lot of these are institutional, basically companies, right? Investors. These real estate investors, according to Redfin, purchased about 44,000 homes in the U.S. during the first quarter of 2024. 44,000 homes. That's close to 19% of all U.S. homes sold during that time frame. The share of lower-priced homes bought by investors was about 26.1%. Over a quarter of all the lower income homes were snapped up by these investors who then turned them into rentals. They're squeezing people out and raising the prices of homes while raising the prices of rent. You can see the problem, right? And of course, you can also add in the fact that, yes, we're not building affordable housing. And one of the reasons that we're not building affordable housing is because you've got a lot of NIMBYism, okay? People don't want it in their neighborhoods. Drives down the value of their homes. Not in my backyard. Can't have it. Can't have it.
Can't let that happen.
Okay, so all that. We've got institutional investors buying up a lot of the new homes, charging people insane amounts of rent. The amount of new homes that are being built is lower than before. And you get a significant amount of those that get snapped up by private industry. And of course, you have the neglect of building affordable housing. And so this is a perfect storm, okay? All of this is making the housing crisis that much worse. And what are we doing about it? As a country, not much. Criminalizing people for being homeless. Putting them in jail, which I'm sure is not going to help anyone, as far as helping them be able to afford a home, and to get into a home. I mean, you go to jail, you get a criminal record, well, that makes it almost impossible to find housing. You can't get government help. Felons don't get government assistance. They can't get into affordable housing because they're felons. And so, what's going to happen to them? They're stuck, and they keep getting into this poverty trap, ending up in the street, getting arrested, going to jail, ending back, getting released, getting back in the street. They can't do anything. And this is all happening while the world's 5 richest men have doubled their wealth over the last 4 years. The rich are getting richer. I mean, this is America. These are the headlines in the year 2024. Is there any wonder why people are mad? I mean, I think you can tell people are mad because we just had an election where the establishment got completely wiped out by someone who is considered, although I don't agree with that, to be anti-establishment. I think Donald Trump is just a different face of the same establishment that has been screwing us all over the entire time. Okay? He's just a different face there, but the same kind of billionaire bloodsucker, okay, that is screwing us all over. But nonetheless, there are Trump voters out there. And I talked about, Washington Post piece last week where, you got people out there that voted for Trump. Like, we put you in office. We expect you to help us out. We believe that you are someone who is going to help the poor. No. And they also are like, well, look, we were, relying on you to not cut the programs that we need to live. You promised to help us. The only thing I have to say is they've got a really rude awakening coming their way, and I don't want to see it. None of us want to see it. None of us want to see people suffer. Especially even if they made the wrong political choice during an election that was chock full of misinformation and all this stuff. So I mean, a really terrible situation. Okay, and I don't want to see people get hurt, but people are going to get hurt. And it's going to be the people that relied on Donald Trump, believed his lies, that are going to be hurt the most. And it's incredibly unfortunate. While, of course, rich people like Elon Musk are going to get that much richer. Now, you also have the response, by the way, to the death of Brian Thompson, United Healthcare CEO. About 7 in 10 adults, according to a poll, said the denial for healthcare coverage by insurance companies or the profits made by these companies bear at least a great deal or a moderate amount of responsibility for Thompson's death. 44% said, at least when it comes to denial of healthcare coverage, said it bore a great deal of responsibility for the death of Thompson. A great deal. Now, you're not going to get a lot of the breakdown of this, on mainstream media of this poll. They'll mainly say, oh, well, most Americans blame the person who allegedly did the shooting, Luigi. It's one way mainstream media loves to kind of hide the ball on this one and be like, oh, yeah, no, I mean, most people obviously they don't agree with this, the killing and all that, but there it is. The responsibility on it. Yeah, I know most people do agree with that, but once again, you also have the 7 in 10 saying, no, No, a great deal or moderate a deal of responsibility for Thompson's death has to do with denying people healthcare coverage they pay for. So that's very important, right? Now, about half of the people polled believed that at least a moderate amount of blame is rooted in wealth or income inequality. A little more than half of them said, yeah, it's a great deal of blame going around. So there is a massive amount of anti-elite going after these billionaires. A lot of people very much putting a lot of the blame where it should be. The insurance companies, claim denials, other things, okay? Wealth, that's the problem. Now, of course, the majority, as I mentioned, already also says the person who allegedly shot Thomas is most to blame, because we all know murder is wrong. Okay, we all do. At the same time, though, we all understand that murder with a pen is just as wrong as murder with a gun. Okay? It's an example of the anger that people have at the elites, who are, to wrap it all around, right? Driving it home. They're driving homelessness. They're killing people by denying them care. Okay? Killing people by gutting the regulations, the safety regulations, when it comes to their food. Okay? Because people are getting sick. That's what's going on. They're doing it for profit. They're doing it for profit. This is late stage capitalism that is causing all these problems. And only by identifying the real problem can we actually now move forward to find a solution. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.